In Guatemala, social movements call for a march of flowers against the actions of the Public Prosecutor's Office and in favor of democracy. In Spain, the Electoral Authority reported a turnout of more than 40% of the electoral roll by 2 p.m. local time. And in Russia, President Vladimir Putin and his Belarusian counterpart Alexander Lukashenko met to discuss the Ukrainian conflict and Kiev's failed counteroffensive. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Guatemala, social movements, students, and unions called for a march of flowers against the actions of the Public Prosecutor's Office and in favor of democracy in the country. Organizers urge all sectors of the population to join the massive demonstration in favor of democracy, since the Public Prosecutor's Office seems to be hindering a runoff. The mobilization started at the Human Rights Square in front of the Supreme Court of Justice and ends outside the Public Prosecutor's Office. Local and international organizations have expressed the importance of respecting the popular will expressed at the polls and that a runoff election be held on August 20th. In Chile, the national coordinator of the No More AFP called for a mobilization on Sunday to fight for the right to pensions and for a pay-as-you-go system that puts an end to pension fund administrators. The coordinator stressed the urgency of promoting the mobilization to reinstate the demand to end the pension fund administrators in the context of the debate on the pension bill that the government has introduced in Parliament, and the importance of not leaving it as a milestone but as a plan of struggle to be organized independently of the government, because while the government decided to give in to the opposition and maintain the model of individual capitalization, it will be the working class that pays the consequences. In El Salvador, prosecutors and police authorities announced they raided houses in different parts of the country in search of evidence against 100 Colombians who were arrested on suspicion of being part of a money laundering network. The raids were carried out in luxury residences in the department of La Libertad, as well as in the city of Nejapa and other localities in the department of San Salvador. In the procedures, authorities seized vehicles, identity documents, commercial documents, business cards of false financial companies that reinforced the investigation for the alleged crime of money laundering. The Attorney General's office reported that the detainees, who include former military and former politicians, entered El Salvador at different times as tourists and offered credit, but were not registered with the superintendency of the financial system. And in El Salvador also, several social movements, human rights activists, and journalists denounced persecution, harassment, and attempted arbitrary arrests by the executive. Representatives of the movement of victims of the regime, of the Social Service of Passionists, of the Central American University Institute for Human Rights, among others, assured that they have been victims of harassment for the denunciations that they have made against the regime of exception that has been in effect for a year. These social movements denounce attempts at arrest, siege of peaceful activities, and various forms of intimidation. They warn that they will go to the Public Prosecutor's Office to leave records.
The movement of victims of the regime, what we want now is to make an official denunciation of the attempt to capture members of Movir. On the 7th of July, after finishing an activity where we denounced the arbitrary detentions, we denounced those deaths that are being reported daily on social media and not by the government media. They are dying for lack of medical attention due to torture. Children are dying, so that was the objective of the march, and we fear a persecution never seen by Movir.
Mexican and Cuban citizens mobilized to the U.S. Embassy in the Mexican capital as part of the activities marking the 70th anniversary of the assault on the Moncada and Carlos Manuel de Céspedes barracks in Cuba. The Mexican Movement of Solidarity with Cuba and the Association of Cuban Residents, Jose Marti, organized the mobilization that left from the monument to Benito Juárez in the central Alameda to arrive at the U.S. diplomatic headquarters. Upon their arrival, they emphasized the significance of the assault on the barracks and the armed struggle They also called on Biden's administration to end the unjust blockade it has maintained against Cuba for 63 years. Heavy rainstorms swept across northeast China, leading to floods in residential areas, which forced authorities to relocate people from flooded areas. The meteorological authorities in Heilongjiang issued a blue alert for rainstorms. By Saturday night, 77.5 millimeters of rain had fallen in Harbin City, with flooded roads bringing traffic to a near standstill in some areas of the city. The Provincial Water Resources Department and Meteorological Bureau issued a risk warning for river flooding and a yellow alert for mountain torrents. Liaoning province also experienced persistent heavy rain, with about 55 millimeters of rain on average falling across the province, with some areas receiving as much as 276 millimeters of rain. Civil authorities have activated emergency plans to evacuate residents affected by heavy rains and carry out drainage work. On Sunday, Afghan authorities announced that at least 31 people were killed and some 40 others are reported missing after floods in Vardak province, west of Kabul. Local media added that floods completely destroyed or damaged more than 250 houses in the district of Halres, Shaki, Saibadat, and Jagatu, among others. The weather disaster washed away vast agricultural areas and caused the closure of several roads, particularly the one connecting Kabul to Bamyan. Government spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid said urgent aid was sent to the affected areas. Afghanistan is often affected by Asian monsoons, which trigger regular flash floods during the wet season. In Pakistan, authorities report at least 4 people dead and 8 others injured following a rain-driven flood in the east. The Provincial Disaster Management Authority reported that the fatalities are 3 women and a child from Lahore. As a result of the floods, 5 houses were damaged. The Pakistan Meteorological Agency warned that the rains could extend in the coming days. In view of this scenario, authorities call on citizens to stay in safe houses. On Sunday, rescue teams searched for survivors under the rubble of a bridge that collapsed in the western Greek town of Patras. Greek authorities said some 35 firefighters and 12 vehicles were sent to the scene on a road leading to the capital. So far, preliminary data reported 8 injured and 1 dead. Fire Brigade spokesman Vasilis Vathrak Ogianis said traffic had been closed on the bridge since July 20th due to demolition work for the reconstruction of the subway, and added the reasons for the collapse of the bridge, which links the port of Patras on the Peloponnese Peninsula with Athens, were not immediately clear. President of the Earthquake Protection Organization, Efthymios Lekas, told local media the bridge had stability problems that were known to authorities. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Those stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In Spain, government authorities announced that the voting process has gone smoothly and highlighted an increase in citizen turnout. According to the Secretary of Communication, Francesc Valles, and the Undersecretary of the Interior, Isabel Goicoechea, the electoral process takes place without any problems in all polling stations of the territory. They also announced that at the closing of the polls, votes received by mail will be counted. Valles updated the partial participation data from the data center of the Madrid Fair Institution and assured that these represent an increase with respect to the previous elections. All 4 main political leaders voted in the morning, with Spanish Premier Pedro Sánchez, the first at around 9 a.m. local time, and the last Yolanda Díaz, head of the left-wing Sumar coalition. The main candidates urged for an increase in turnout. Spain's Interior Ministry said by 2 p.m. local time, voter turnout stood at around 40.5%, up from 37.9% recorded at the same time during the 2019 elections. It is important to note that postal voting with a record 2.5 million citizens registered to vote is not included in the figures.
In any electoral process, turnout is important because in the end we are making decisions about policies which will be implemented in our country in the long term. So regardless of which party gets the more voters, being active participants in an election is always positive for our democracy.
Our correspondent Sergio Rodrigo in Spain has the following testimony from a polling station in Madrid.
Phenomenal. I didn't even know which table I had to go, and a lovely man helped me out. It all went very fast and very, very well. Even the weather is nice. It's not so hot. Phenomenal. Very good. I have noticed more people this time, and I always come to vote early. I have noticed a lot more participation, at least in my table and in the area where the tables in my neighborhood are. Much more people than in previous years.
Let's now review some data regarding Pedro Sánchez as a Prime Minister candidate.
Pedro Sánchez is the current Prime Minister of Spain and is running as the candidate of the Socialist Labour Party for these elections. Pedro Sánchez has a degree in economics and was a member of parliament for the constituency of Madrid between 2009 and 2011. He was a councilman in the City Council of Madrid between 2004 and 2009. As for the economy, his party seeks to give continuity to the increase in pensions, protection for the long-term unemployed, and assessment of large wealth. In employment, they foresee a path for full employment to lower structural unemployment to 8% and a shock plan against youth unemployment. On the health issue, they seek to reinforce the right to universal, public and quality mental health. And in education, they propose greater investment up to 5% of the gross domestic product for educational centers.
Now let's see who is the standard bearer of the Popular Party, Alberto Núñez Feijóo.
Alberto Núñez Feijóo is the current president of the center-right Popular Party and is running for the first time as a candidate for the Prime Minister office. The leader is a lawyer and served as vice president of the Galician Health Service in 1992. In 2003, he was appointed Councillor of the Territorial Policy of Galicia. Alberto Núñez Feijóo's party presents 365 measures to govern Spain the next legislature. Among them, for the economic issue, they promise the financing of small and medium-sized enterprises, to carry a comprehensive reform of the active employment policies and the flexibility of the working hours. In addition, his party seeks to implement an immediate tax relief for families by reducing the tax rate. In housing, it foresees a state pact. In energy, it seeks to reach a pact for the expansion of water and dams. And for the family issue, they hope to create a unified social and health card.
In Cambodia, polls closed and vote counting is underway. Prime Minister Hun Sen's ruling party declared that it was on course for a landslide victory. 18 political parties participated in these elections, which, according to the country's legal framework, must be held every 5 years. All 23,789 polling stations spread throughout the country opened almost simultaneously. More than 9.7 million people were registered to vote in Cambodia's 7th election since the United Nations first sponsored polls in 1993. After years of conflict, according to the National Election Committee, voter turnout recorded at 3:16 p.m. local time was 78%. Official results are expected to be announced between Sunday night and Monday morning. The results will be officialized on August 9th.
The election process has been calm and with a good atmosphere, despite it is raining now. The voters can vote for any parties. It is their rights, even if they submit a void ballot. It is also their rights. In election, the voters vote in secret.
In Rome, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni led a Mediterranean conference on migration. Meloni hosted leaders of Mediterranean countries for an international conference aimed at extending the model agreement signed by the European Union with Tunisia to curb migration to Europe. Prime Minister Meloni opened the conference shortly after 1 p.m. local time in the presence of leaders from the region, the European Union, and representatives of financial institutions. The main issues discussed at the meeting were curbing illegal migration, the management of legal migration flows, providing support for refugees, and, above all, cooperation to foster development in the countries of origin of migrants. TeleSUR English launched its own videos on demand site for you to go and revisit our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Just go to the top left corner in our website homepage and click on the video option to access our VOD platform. We'll now take a final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Russia, President Vladimir Putin and his Belarusian counterpart Alexander Lukashenko met to discuss the Ukrainian conflict and Kiev's failed counteroffensive. President Putin estimated that the irrecoverable losses of the Kiev forces since the beginning of their counteroffensive already exceeded 26,000 people. Likewise, the Belarusian president stated that there is no Ukrainian counteroffensive, while President Putin pointed out that there is a counteroffensive that failed. The Russian president detailed that they presented proposals in relation to their partnership and strategic alliances. Russia's Defense Ministry's war report issued Sunday confirms that Russian troops have repelled Ukrainian attacks on several fronts. In Lysychansk, Soledar, and Bakhmut, the young group suppressed an attempted assault by Ukrainian troops. With aviation support, they neutralized enemy formations. Also in Alexander, Kalinovsk, and Marinka, air support fired missiles at Ukrainian troops early detected by reconnaissance units. Such advance move allowed Russian troops to destroy Ukrainian armed vehicles before they could reach the transition line. The Russian Defense Ministry also rejected Ukrainian claims that Russia is responsible for the destruction of an Orthodox cathedral in Odessa. The statement issued by the Defense Ministry says that the targets set for destruction, namely facilities where terrorist attacks were being prepared with the use of drones, were located at a safe distance from the cathedral. They further explained that the planning of Russian attacks is carried out with precision weapons against the military and terrorist infrastructure of the Kiev regime. Moscow added that this attack was its response to the terrorist attacks on the Crimean Bridge. On Sunday, China and Russia concluded a joint naval exercise in the Sea of Japan that aims to assert the security of strategic maritime passage. The Chinese Defense Ministry said the Northern Interaction 2023 exercise was held to enhance strategic cooperation between the two countries and strengthen their ability to jointly safeguard regional peace and stability. Over the past 4 days, the participating units from Chinese and Russian navies carried out a series of joint missions, including maritime and air escort, deterrence and expulsion, and anchorage defense.
The exercise major real combat actions for China and Russia to jointly assert the security of the strategic maritime passage, as well as an important practice for the two militaries to deepen joint naval and aerial operations. The exercise has substantially elevated the strategic cooperation between the two countries and the two militaries to another level, while playing a positive role in maintaining stability in the Northeast Asia region.
Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi demanded that Sweden prosecute Quran desecrators. In a meeting with the heads of the three powers of the country, the Iranian president considered the verbal condemnation of the desecration of the Quran is insufficient. Raisi assures that the incident is conspiratorial and dangerous since it takes the form of war against the Islamic world. For this reason, the Iranian president called on Stockholm to bring the perpetrators of the desecration to justice and reiterated that Tehran would not welcome the new Swedish ambassador scheduled to arrive in the coming days. In Israel, local media noted that demonstrations against the judicial overhaul reached their 29th week, with an estimated number of 550,000 people mobilized. The protests take place in the framework of an Israeli parliament session on the draft law and the amendment of the reasonableness clause. In this sense, groups of demonstrators took to the streets in front of Security Minister Yoav Gallant's house, while others took to the streets against the government of Benjamin Netanyahu. Demonstrators assured it will not end before Monday afternoon, as the bill will be presented in second and third readings after obtaining the approval of the Parliament's Rights Committee. We have come to the end of this news brief from, and you can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.